Has breast cancer ever made you wonder if the life you imagined has been taken away from you? Maybe you're grieving more than your diagnosis. Or maybe you're grieving your plans, your confidence, or even the person you used to be. In this episode, we are sitting down with Naomi's story, not as a Bible study, but as a reminder that even when life feels interrupted by loss, God is still writing your story. And perhaps He's not finished with yours yet. Are you scared of leaving your children behind after a breast cancer diagnosis? Are you carrying fear, exhaustion, and that mom guilt while still pushing through every day? If you're tired of holding all of that and want simple ways to support your children and feel held in your journey and move through each day with a little more strength, you're in the right place. Hey, I'm Priska. I'm a mom of 2, a woman of faith, and a breast cancer survivor. As a mom, I tried to carry it all alone, but I was never meant to. So I created this space for us. Come sit with me. You don't have to do this alone. So go grab your cup of tea. Yes, that cold cup of tea. I know you've heated it thrice already. And let's get started. Hey friend, before we get started today, I just want to say I'm really proud of you for showing up for yourself today. I know life can feel really heavy sometimes, so the fact that you pressed play, it means more than you know. And if you know someone who's going through a breast cancer diagnosis who might need to hear this episode, please do share it with them. Sometimes a simple message saying, "I thought of you when I had this," can make someone feel a little less alone. And if this podcast has helped you and encouraged you in any way, please leave a written review too. I truly love hearing from you. And your reviews, they help other moms find this podcast. So let's get started. Hey friend, come and take your seat. I've got my cup of tea beside me and hopefully you've got yours too. Or maybe you're driving, or maybe you're waiting outside for another appointment, or perhaps you finally reached that moment in the day when the house is quiet and your thoughts finally catch up with you. So last week we talked about guilt. It's the questions we ask ourselves after a breast cancer diagnosis. Did I cause this? Should I have known sooner, or did I miss something? And maybe for the first time, you gave yourself permission to put some of that guilt down. But once the guilt begins to settle, something else often surfaces. It's the grief. It's not only the grief for what you've been through, it's the grief for the life you thought you were going to have, and the life of, will I have it? So something I've realized about breast cancer is that it doesn't only interrupt your health, it interrupts your future. One day you're moving along, you're making plans, planning holidays, thinking about your children's futures, you're making career decisions, you're already dreaming about retirement, and you're wondering what the next few years will look like. Then one conversation, one scan, one biopsy, one phone call, and suddenly the future you had imagined disappears. And nobody really talks about grieving that future, but it is real. You start grieving birthdays that you don't know if you'll ever see. You start grieving school graduations or family holidays. You grieve about meeting your grandchildren or even watching your children become parents themselves. Nobody has taken away those things, not yet. But cancer suddenly makes you realize that none of them are guaranteed. And that changes something inside of you. And I've spent a lot of time thinking about Naomi. Usually when people teach from the book of Ruth, they talk about Ruth. You know, she's courageous, she's faithful, she's loyal. But recently I couldn't stop thinking about Naomi because I think many of us understand Naomi far more than we realize. Naomi wasn't simply grieving her family, her people, her sons and husband who had died. She was grieving the future she thought she was going to live. So when we first meet Naomi, life is already difficult. There's famine, so she and her husband have to leave everything familiar and go to another country, hoping life will improve. Maybe she'd imagined returning home one day with grandchildren, with family around the table, a full house. But instead, she buries her husband, then one son, and then another. So can you imagine? Like, she left home with everything and she returned home with almost nothing. And that's the thing about grief. Sometimes it isn't one loss, it's the loss after loss after loss. And one of the reasons that I really connect so deeply with Naomi is because breast cancer often feels like that. It's not one loss, it is many. You lose certainty, you lose the confidence, you lose your hair, your energy, your independence, your plans. Sometimes you lose friendships, sometimes finances, and you lose the version of yourself that you once recognized. And one day you wake up and realize that you're grieving someone who's still alive, yourself. There's one verse that has always stopped me. It's when Naomi says, "Don't call me Naomi, call me Mara." Because Mara means bitter. And every time I read that, I wondered what had happened inside her, that she no longer recognized the woman she used to be. She renamed herself according to her pain. And I wonder how many of us quietly do the same. Maybe not with our words, but it's the way we think. I'm the woman with cancer. I'm the woman whose body has failed. I'm the woman who will never be the same again. And without realizing it, our diagnosis slowly becomes our identity. So a few months ago, I was reading Naomi's story again, and honestly, I got so excited and I couldn't sleep. It was around midnight and I grabbed my journal and I started writing pages and pages. And then my son had come from the gym and I was practically waiting at the door. And I'm telling him, "You've got to hear this." Oh, poor thing. He'd only just walked in and I couldn't contain it. And I was telling him all about Naomi. Because suddenly I saw Naomi completely differently. It suddenly occurred to me, what if Naomi never realized what role she was actually playing? Like, think about it. If there had been no famine, she'd never had gone to Moab. If she had never gone to Moab, Ruth would never have become part of her family. And if Ruth had never gone back with Naomi, she'd never have met Boaz. So, no Boaz, no Obed, no King David. And no King David, no earthly family line leading to Jesus. So Naomi was a destiny connector. Like, she was the queen of hookups. And she probably died never fully understanding the significance of her own story in that. And that thought has never left me. And it made me wonder too, how often do we try to judge our entire lives? When we're still living in chapter 5, we are desperate to know why. We are desperate for answers. We are desperate to understand. But what if we are still living in the middle chapters? What if God is still writing? Now, just hear this. I'm not saying that breast cancer happened so something good could come. Cancer is devastating. It is horrendous. It changes lives. It breaks hearts. But I'm saying this, that our God is so incredibly creative that even cancer does not get the final word. So if we look at Naomi, eventually Naomi held baby Obed in her arms. Can you imagine that? The woman who once believed her story was over. She became part of the greatest redemption story the world has ever known and will ever know. Not because life returned to what it was or how it was. It did not. but because God wrote a different ending. And perhaps that's the sentence I want to leave with you today. There will be joy again. Not the same joy cancer changes us, but there can still be joy. A quieter joy, a deeper joy, a joy that has walked through suffering and discovered that God never walked away. And one verse became my verse and has stayed with me throughout this season. Joel 2:25. I will restore to you the years that the locusts have eaten. I don't believe that God meant to give us back exactly what we lost, but I do believe that He's able to restore hope, purpose, peace, and joy in ways that we could never imagine, because that's exactly what He did for Naomi, and I believe He still does it today. So maybe today you're standing where Naomi once stood. You're feeling like your story has been defined by loss. You're starting to call yourself bitter, Mara. Can I gently remind you of something? You're still in the middle of the story. God is still writing, and because He's still writing, hope is never lost. And one day you will look back and discover that the chapter you wanted to skip became the chapter that allowed someone else to find hope. Because for me, that chapter became this podcast. I never wanted breast cancer. I would never choose it again. But I can see now that God has taken my deepest pain and turned it into a place where another mom can come and sit down and know that she's not walking alone. So I thank you for spending this little bit of your time with me today. And until next time, keep taking one small step forward. God is still writing your story, and there'll always be a seat here waiting for you, right next to me. I hope this episode held you in some small way today. And if it did, please share with a friend who needs to hear this, or maybe needs a soft place to land. And if you feel ready, please leave a written review for the podcast. I'd truly love to hear from you and to know that this show is supporting you in your journey. This space, it's not just mine, it is ours. So now go take a breath, maybe reheat that tea one more time, and I'll meet you back here for the next episode. Ciao.